Through forests, mountains, and desert, it takes hours to reach Bend, Oregon, a beautiful but isolated community. If you want to keep a secret, one so haunting, so unthinkable, this is a good place to do it. We came here to find this woman, Rebecca Babcock, whose secret almost destroyed her. Tonight, she speaks for the first time about her mother, whom she calls Diane.
I wish that I could just forget Diane completely, that I could just wash her from my body.
She came into this world in the most dark and sordid way, born, some say, the seed of a monster. To understand why it has taken 26 years for Becky to come to terms with her frightening past, you must go back to the beginning.
Susan Smith has been arrested.
Long before the shocking, unimaginable crimes of child killers Susan Smith and Andrea Yates, the nation was gripped by the story of Diane Downs. The year is 1983. Thriller tops the charts. Ronald Reagan is president. Vanessa Williams becomes the first African-American crowned Miss America. Dallas is the #1 TV show. And in Springfield, Oregon, on May 19th at 10:48 p.m., Diane Downs drives into the emergency room drop-off. Her car is soaked in blood, and inside are her 3 small children, 8-year-old Christy, 7-year-old Cheryl, and 3-year-old Danny, all shot at close range. Cheryl is dead on arrival, Christy and Danny just barely alive. As doctors work frantically to save them, police are called to the hospital. For Detective Doug Welsh, it is his first homicide investigation.
It was hectic. People were in crisis mode, struggling to save these kids.
Reporter Ann Jagger hears about the shootings on the radio.
What was the reaction in the community? This kind of thing didn't happen then. Springfield, you know, it's a family place. You live there because you love the surroundings and you feel safe, and that was all blown apart.
Crime author Ann Rule will spend months in Springfield writing what will later become a bestseller, Small Sacrifices.
When there's a murder or something, the neighbors always say something like that doesn't happen here. But of course it does.
While Danny had been shot in the back and Christy twice in the chest, their mother is in good condition with a minor gunshot wound to her left forearm. The 27-year-old single mother, a divorced postal worker, tells police that night and later the press a terrifying story.
She told us that she and the kids had been visiting a friend earlier that evening. After it grew dark, they decided to head home.
We were just out, I guess, sightseeing, I guess you'd say. And the kids got tired. They fell asleep in the car, so I decided to just head on home. But I saw a road I hadn't been on before. We like to take back roads, and just went down that road.
It was on this dark and desolate country road, listening to the song Hungry Like the Wolf on the car's tape player, when she says she saw a bushy-haired stranger on the road.
And there was a guy standing in the road, flagging me down, so I stopped.
She said she turned the ignition off, and she asked, "What's the problem?" He said, "I want your car." She replied, "You've got to be kidding." And it was at that time that he pushed her aside and then reached in and shot the 3 sleeping kids.
Everything was done in a matter of 5 or 10 seconds.
She said she had her keys in her hand, and she faked throwing the keys out into this field.
He swung himself around and fired twice. One caught me in the arm, the other one I went off somewhere.
She pushed him away, jumped in the car, and raced off to the hospital. So that was her version.
Danny cried the whole way. I could hear him softly just moaning, and Christy was dying. God, all the blood, all the pain.
Emotionally, she was flat.
I kept trying to tell
detached.
her to roll over so she wouldn't choke on the blood, and it didn't dawn on me at the time that the blood was coming from her lungs.
Her behavior was not anything that you would expect for a mother who'd gone through this. Not one tear that entire night.
Sheriff's Department search and rescue teams were on the scene early this morning, probing for any clues.
Terror gripped the town of Springfield in the face of such unthinkable violence.
This afternoon, the Sheriff's Department released this composite drawing of the suspect, who was said to be in his late 20s with shoulder-length hair and a scraggly beard.
It was such a shocking story. Mothers didn't go out in the evening, and they sure didn't take their children.
While police look for a mysterious gunman, divers try to find the missing murder weapon, a .22 caliber handgun. But even as they search, police are immediately suspicious of Downs' story. Just 4 days after her 7-year-old daughter was killed, Downs is filmed reenacting the attack.
Sitting in the car is Elizabeth Diane Downs, one of the victims of this attempt murder.
I'm throwing the keys, okay? I'm throwing the keys.
Simulating,
yes? Yes, I go like that. I got in the car, jumped in, put the keys in. I just hit my cast. Started the car and left. The car door shut itself. God.
Downs seems lighthearted, giggling, even fixing her makeup.
You can tell she's thoroughly enjoying herself. That's evident when you look at the reenactment. She loves the limelight, loves to be on stage.
Within a month, her story starts to not add up.
Right.
She doesn't remember anything.
People would see little sound bites of her talking on television.
What happened to me? What happened?
And I think they started getting the feeling that there's something really wrong with this person.
And then he swung around towards me.
She couldn't keep her mouth shut. She talked all the time, talked too much. In a sense, Diane was her own worst enemy.
I don't care. When this man shot my daughter, my first reaction was to snap back to my childhood, to the pain that had happened to me back then, my marriage, my entrapment by society. This man was bigger than me. He was stronger than me.
Downs' demeanor is especially startling when you consider the condition of her 2 remaining children. 3-year-old Danny is paralyzed from the chest down, and 8-year-old Christy, the only other witness to the crime, has suffered a stroke and is unable to speak. The police have no murder weapon, no witnesses, and no motive. But many begin asking questions about Diane Downs.
Why would a mother with little kids take them out for a drive in the dark on a school night?
Why does she stop for a stranger on a dark country road?
Boy, I'm a mother, and no mother does that.
Why on earth would anyone shoot 3 sleeping children?
This was a whole different kind of monster that we were not familiar with.
On this dark country road 26 years ago, Diane Downs claims her car was stopped by a mysterious stranger who then opened fire on her 3 small children.
And then he swung around towards me.
Downs tells anyone who will listen in the town of Springfield, Oregon, a horrific tale.
And then the gun kept firing and firing and firing.
Again and again, Downs, a single mother and a postal worker, adamantly denies any involvement.
Why would I have taken my kids to the hospital? Wouldn't I have made sure they were dead and then cried crocodile tears? That's insane to think that I would do such a thing and then bring the witnesses in against myself. That's crazy.
But police discover parts of her story don't add up. Detective Doug Welsh is one of the lead investigators.
Sightseeing after dark with 3 sleeping children, stopping for a stranger who flags her down, that made little sense.
Downs repeatedly tells police and the press that after the kids were shot, she raced to the hospital. But police say another driver on the road that night saw something else.
We found a witness, a gentleman who came up behind her. Diane was traveling so slow that this witness's speedometer wouldn't move off the peg. It's my belief that she was waiting for the kids to die.
And reporters covering the story wondered about the towel that was neatly wrapped around Downs' injured left arm that night, where she claimed she was shot by the gunman.
None of the kids had any first aid of any kind. That would be my first mission as a mother, to make sure they didn't bleed to death. She has a towel wrapped around her arm.
But most jarring is Downs' own behavior. Her 7-year-old daughter Cheryl is dead, her 3-year-old son Danny paralyzed, and 8-year-old Christy has lost so much blood she suffers a stroke and is unable to speak. So why is Downs smiling as she describes the most gruesome of tragedies?
She was showing up everywhere on every news station, and I think she thought that if she could explain long enough, if she could talk to you long enough, you would see it her way.
Ann Jagger conducted an in-depth interview with Downs for local station KEZI and discovered the longer Downs talked, the guiltier she seemed.
Everybody says you sure were lucky. Well, I don't feel very lucky. I couldn't tie my damn shoes for about 2 months. The scar is going to be there forever. I'm going to remember that night for the rest of my life, whether I want to or not. I don't think I was very lucky. I think my kids were lucky. If I had been shot the way they were, we all would have died.
She seemed to be missing the compassion, the empathy. I mean, it was all about her. It's all about me.
Do you think there was any regret, any remorse in all the time you spent with her and observed her?
No.
But at night, when I close my eyes, I can see Christy reaching her hand out to me while I'm driving, and the blood just keep coming out of her mouth. And that, maybe it'll fade too with time, but I don't think so. That haunts me the most.
So what did you think as that interview unraveled?
The hairs stand up on the back of your neck. You know that you are in the room with a woman who shot her 3 children.
It wasn't like a movie when I was telling them. I was telling them what happened.
But inappropriate behavior and a story full of holes is not evidence of murder. Police still can't find a murder weapon or a motive. That is, until they discover Downs' secret diary. In it, pages and pages of passion and desire for a man named Nick, a married man and a former co-worker at the post office.
She wrote every day to Nick about Nick. He was the love of her life.
She was desperate to get his attention.
He didn't want to be a dad to the kids.
Police see a motive.
She saw the kids as a burden. They were in the way, and he wasn't going to join her as long as she had the kids. The quickest, simplest way was to eliminate the children.
If Downs wanted her children dead, she failed, even while shooting them at point-blank range. Danny and Christy are alive, and once out of the hospital are placed with a foster family. Danny is too young to tell what happened, and Christy, severely traumatized and partially paralyzed, can't speak. Therapists spend months easing her toward recovery and a chance to tell the truth.
We knew that Christy would be a key witness in this trial, but she needed to be healthy enough physically and emotionally to be able to take the stand.
In February 1984, nearly 9 months after the shooting, Downs is finally arrested.
She's been charged with 1 count of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and 2 counts of assault in the first degree.
Downs pleads not guilty, but as she arrives in court that day, she has her own bombshell. Downs, the mother accused of shooting her kids, is pregnant again.
I got pregnant because I miss Christy, and I miss Danny, and I miss Cheryl so much. I'm never going to see Cheryl on earth again. And you can't replace children, but you can replace the effect that they give you. And they give me love, they give me satisfaction, they give me stability, they give me a reason to live and a reason to be happy, and that's gone. They took it from me. But children are so easy to conceive.
She didn't have babies so she could love them. She had babies so they could love her.
Was it common knowledge who the father was?
People still don't know who it was.
But author Ann Rule claims she has spoken to the real father and promised to never reveal his identity.
So she was carrying mail. She picked one of her men on her route, and she showed up at his door one evening with whiskey and some marijuana. He let her in, and she soon took off